They were legends among the ancient civilizations, a people of immense wealth and remarkable accomplishments. Towering stone palaces rose majestically from fertile lands, while homes intricately carved into mountains stood as enduring testaments to their extraordinary ingenuity. This was the civilization of Thamud, inheritors of both land and legacy, emerging after the downfall of the mighty tribe of Ad, swept away by the fierce winds of divine retribution. Thamud flourished in the verdant valleys of Al-Hijaz, embodying power, precision, and prosperity. They mastered the land with their skilled hands, harnessing its abundant resources and proudly showcasing their achievements. Their story was not one of hardship or mere survival, but one of luxury and grandeur. They constructed not out of necessity, but as monuments to their pride, grand spectacles etched into the very earth. Their valleys were lush, their wells brimming, and their granaries overflowing. Yet beneath this radiant facade, a far more perilous force was taking root. Success devoid of humility breeds arrogance, and Thamud was no exception. They grew to believe themselves invincible, convinced their triumphs were the product of their own strength rather than blessings from above. Their hearts hardened, moral direction faltered, and they strayed further from the divine commandments of their Creator. In their arrogance, they turned to the worship of many gods, idols fashioned from stone and clay, lifeless figures molded by their own hands and worshipped in vain. Compassion for the poor and the weak faded. The vulnerable were neglected and oppressed, while the elite luxuriated in excess, flaunting their wealth with scornful laughter. Despite knowing the fate of Ad, whose ruined remnants lay not far from their territory, they dismissed such history as mere myth. Surely they believed the powerful and affluent could not fall like those before them. Their grand palaces and mountain fortresses, they assumed, would shield them from any threat, human or divine. They were gravely mistaken. In His boundless mercy, Allah did not immediately destroy them, but sent a warner, a guide, a man from among their own people, who spoke their language and shared their lineage. His mission was to lead them back to the truth before it was too late. That man was Salih, renowned for his wisdom and integrity. Respected by all, young and old alike, Salih hailed from noble ancestry and was known for his eloquence and honor. Prior to his prophetic mission, many had hoped he would rise as a political leader, uniting the people under his capable governance. They never anticipated that his leadership would manifest through prophecy, or that his message would challenge the very foundations of their faith. When the divine message was bestowed upon Salih, he accepted it with a heavy yet obedient heart. He stood before his people, those who had long known and respected him, ready to deliver the call back to righteousness. With unwavering determination, he stood before his people and declared, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no deity other than Him." However, the response was far from what one might expect from a community that once held him in high regard. Confusion, skepticism, and eventually hostility spread swiftly among them. Some were stunned, others infuriated, and many openly challenged him. "Salih, you were once a man of promise, respected by all, yet now you forbid us from the religion of our ancestors." Their pride in lineage and stubborn attachment to tradition erected a formidable barrier between them and the truth. Saleh did not respond with anger. Instead, he continued patiently and sincerely, explaining that their ancestors had been led astray. True salvation, he insisted, was not found in clinging to lifeless customs, but in recognizing the living God, the one who created them, sustains them, and has blessed them with all they possess. Yet, the more he reasoned, the more they resisted. The elite, fearful of losing their power should the masses heed Saleh's call, resorted to mockery and insult. Accusations of madness and sorcery were hurled at him. "You are bewitched," some claimed. "You have lost your mind," declared others. Still, Saleh stood firm. He pleaded with his people, saying, "If I am upon the truth and you reject it, who will protect you from Allah's judgment? I shall not abandon my duty. I will call you day and night until Allah decides between us." A small group of believers emerged, primarily the poor and humble, whose hearts remained untainted by wealth or status. They embraced the message of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and followed Salih with courageous conviction. However, their voices were faint and often drowned beneath the roar of disbelief that grew louder each day. Time passed, days, weeks, months, perhaps even years. Yet Salih's dedication never faltered, despite increasing rejection. The people who once celebrated him now regarded him as a threat to their established order. Nevertheless, he persisted in his mission, warning of the consequences of their disobedience, calling them to repentance, and reminding them both of the blessings bestowed upon them and the punishments that had befallen previous nations. They challenged him. "Where is this punishment you speak of? If you are truly a prophet, then bring us a sign." Their demand was not born from a genuine desire for guidance, but rather to discredit him. Yet, in his infinite wisdom, Allah prepared to grant them precisely what they asked for, a sign that would neither come with thunder nor fire, but in a most miraculous and unforeseen form, a living creature sculpted from stone itself. This final sign was both a test and an opportunity for redemption. On the day they demanded this sign, their fate began to unfold. With smug expressions and folded arms, the leaders of Thamud convened in their assembly and faced Salih directly. Their hearts had already grown cold. They were no longer seekers of truth, but challengers. Pointing to a colossal, immobile rock at the heart of their valley, they declared, "If you are truly a prophet, then bring forth from this." They demanded of Salih a living sign carved from stone, a she-camel, but not just any camel. They insisted on a creature tall and magnificent, heavily pregnant, her body thickly covered with wool. She was to be so blessed that her milk would suffice to nourish their entire community. The specifications were exacting, their tone dripping with mockery. This was not a genuine request, but a trap designed to ensnare Salih, to see him falter and be discredited before his followers by an impossible demand. Yet Salih remained unshaken. With profound sincerity, he turned to his Lord, beseeching for a miracle that might awaken the hearts of his people and steer them from impending ruin. Then before their very eyes the impossible transpired. The ground beneath them trembled faintly, and the colossal rock they had chosen, once a symbol of their defiance, began to fracture. A radiant light burst forth from within, and from that very stone emerged a creature unlike any they had ever witnessed, not merely alive, but majestic. A towering red she-camel stepped forth, as if born from the very essence of light and dust. Her sides heavy with pregnancy, her wool glistening under the sun. The people gasped in awe, some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the miraculous sight. The sign they had demanded had come, manifest exactly as described. Her presence was no illusion nor sorcery. It was a living sign from Allah, both a mercy and a stern warning. Along with her came a divine command. Do not harm her, allow her to live freely among you. Let her drink from your wells one day, and you may drink the next. Her rights were to be respected, her existence honored, for she was sent as a test. The she-camel moved among them with quiet dignity. Her milk flowed abundantly, ensuring no household in Thamud was left wanting. Each family took their turn, drinking deeply from the nourishment provided by the decree of their Creator. Days passed, and she gave birth to a calf which wobbled unsteadily beside her. Yet another sign for those still harboring doubt. Salih renewed his urgent call. "O my people, you have been granted what you demanded. This is the sign you sought. Will you not now believe? Will you not turn to your Lord who sent this miracle before your very eyes?" But instead of inspiring faith, the miracle stoked resentment in the hearts of the arrogant. They perceived the she-camel not as a blessing, but as a burden. Her vast size meant she drank heavily from their wells, even though it was only every other day. Jealousy began to ferment. That she had come through Salih's supplication, that her very presence validated his message, was a reality they found unbearable. The leaders of disbelief gathered again, this time in secret. The she-camel had become a living challenge to their authority. As long as she roamed freely among the people, their falsehoods and accusations lost their potency. They whispered and conspired, questioning how much longer they could endure this humiliation. And, as with so many transgressions before it, in the annals of history, the wicked intentions of Thamud's dissenters were further fueled by temptation. Two women among them, both deeply entrenched in disbelief and arrogance, approached the conspirators with alluring offers. One pledged herself in marriage to her cousin, Masra ibn Maharaj, should he commit the nefarious act. Another, an older woman driven by her hatred for the truth, promised her daughters to a man willing to assist in slaying the sacred she-camel. Thus the dark conspiracy was sealed. 9 men agreed to carry out this heinous deed. They armed themselves, plotted meticulously, and selected the precise moment and location for their assault at the well where the she-camel came to drink. On that fateful day, the people of Thamud went about their daily lives, unaware of the tempest brewing in the hearts of these conspirators. As the majestic she-camel approached the well, her calf trotting faithfully beside her, one of the conspirators loosed an arrow, striking her leg and causing her great pain. Her anguished cries shattered the stillness, igniting chaos. The lead conspirator, Salih ibn Junda, raised his sword and with brutal finality struck down the noble creature who had only served and nourished them. The she-camel collapsed, blood soaking the earth beneath her. Her calf, traumatized by the loss of its mother, fled to the mountains, climbing to a peak where it cried out thrice, a haunting wail that echoed through the valley like a curse. Those who heard it trembled, sensing the portent of doom. Meanwhile, the conspirators celebrated with reckless abandon. They rejoiced, feasted upon the flesh of the very miracle they had once demanded, oblivious to the gravity of their sin. They believed that by killing the sign of Allah, they could silence Salih and end their suffering. News of the atrocity reached Salih swiftly. His heart shattered in the face of such cruelty. With solemn authority, he gathered the people and declared, "Enjoy your homes for 3 more days. Thereafter, your fate will be sealed." This was a promise from Allah, a promise that never fails. The people responded with mockery, scoffing, "Then bring it forth. Show us this punishment if you truly are a messenger." Blind to the mercy still extended to them, they failed to recognize that Allah had granted them these 3 days as a final window for repentance. Yet, instead of reflection, they conspired anew. The same 9 men who had slain the she-camel now resolved to assassinate Salih himself. "Let us strike him in the night and end this once and for all," they plotted. However, as they stealthily approached Salih's residence under the cover of darkness, divine justice intervened. From the heavens, an immense boulder, carried by unseen forces, descended upon them, crushing them where they stood. Not one survived, their evil met with swift and irrevocable retribution. When the rest of the tribe awoke to discover the conspirators dead, a growing unease settled among them. On the first day of the 3 Salih had foretold, faces began to pale to a sickly yellow. The initial sign had manifested. Yet, they dismissed it with scorn. By the second day, their complexions flushed red, and on the third, their faces turned pitch black. Their laughter faded, replaced by mounting fear as the consequences of their defiance became undeniable. Their laughter faded, their voices grew quieter. Anticipation and dread settled over them. They awaited the dawn of the 4th day. Adorned in their finest garments and perfumed in vain, some sought to defy the impending judgment, while others nervously dismissed it as mere bluff. Yet Salih's words were no mere prophecy. They were the decree of Allah. As the sun ascended to its zenith, the divine punishment descended with overwhelming force. Thunder echoed through the heavens as the earth trembled beneath them, seething with wrath. A scream, mighty and piercing, ripped through the air, striking the hearts of every disbeliever. Then came the cataclysm. Mountains quaked, the ground split open, and their palaces crumbled into dust. Not a single soul among the arrogant remained standing. Their grand homes, once carved deep into stone to endure through eternity, became their tombs. Their wealth failed to provide protection. Their idols remained silent, unable to respond to their desperate cries. The mockery that once filled the air was replaced by an ominous silence. The once thriving civilization of Thamud was utterly destroyed by a single command from the one they had denied. Only Prophet Salih and the few faithful believers who had stood firm in their conviction were spared. Returning to witness the devastation, Salih's heart was heavy with sorrow. With a voice laden with grief, he proclaimed, "O my people, I delivered to you the message of my Lord with sincerity and earnestness. I offered you sincere counsel, yet you rejected it. Your fate was sealed, not only by disbelief, but by arrogance, by your refusal to humble yourselves before the truth." Within their destruction lies a timeless lesson. Miracles do not transform hearts hardened by pride, and signs mean nothing to those who choose blindness. The land of Thamud was enveloped in a profound stillness. No whisper of wind, no rustling of leaves, no birdsong, only silence. The once vibrant valleys where laughter had echoed and waters had flowed freely now lay eerily calm. Before the sun had risen fully, the first tremor stirred the earth, initially subtle. A low, almost inaudible groan, like the land awakening from a deep slumber. But the trembling intensified, growing from a gentle quiver to violent upheaval. The very ground beneath their feet rippled as if transformed into waves upon a restless sea. Panic seized the people of Thamud as they fled their homes, eyes wide with terror, voices raised in desperate cries. The mountains surrounding them, once symbols of safety and permanence, now groaned and cracked under an unseen, overwhelming power. From the heavens burst a sound unlike anything they had ever encountered, a deafening blast, a scream of divine fury that shattered the mountains, pierced the air, and tore through their bodies with an invisible force that stopped their hearts instantly. Where they once stood with pride, they now collapsed in shock, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-cry. Mothers fell beside their children. Leaders slumped at the thresholds of their lavish palaces. The magnificent carved homes once admired for their beauty and strength crumbled inward. Their wealth, their status, all their earthly achievements dissolved into ruin. Their status, their pride, all erased within moments. The mighty she-camel, once a living sign from Allah that graced their land, was avenged not by sword or army, but by the will of the Creator, whose mercy they had rejected and whose warnings they had scorned. The thunderous cry and the ensuing quake left no one untouched. There was no resistance, no escape, no reprieve. Allah's punishment was impartial. It spared neither the strongest nor the weakest. Every soul who denied the truth, who rejoiced in the she-camel's slaughter, who conspired against Salih or mocked his message, was struck down. Then came silence, once again, but this silence was different. It was not the silence of anticipation, nor the calm before the storm. It was the silence of total desolation. The once vibrant cities were reduced to ruins. Where laughter had once echoed, now only the wind howled through broken stones and shattered walls. The carved mountain homes, once admired by travelers, now stood as lifeless tombs. The land that was once lush and green lay blanketed in dust, ash, and the chilling stillness of divine judgment. No man remained to claim the wells, no woman to gather the grain. The animals that had once grazed the fields had either fled or perished. Nothing remained of Thamud but the memory of their arrogance and the wreckage wrought by their denial. This was a stark and terrifying testament to what befalls a people who, though blessed with prosperity, turn their blessings into weapons against the truth. Their downfall was not sudden. It had been long in the making. When it came, it arrived without mercy. Yet amid this devastation, there were survivors. Salih and the believers remained untouched, not by strength or fortress walls, but because of their submission to Allah and steadfastness in faith. They had endured taunts, isolation, threats, and the anguish of witnessing their neighbors sink deeper into disbelief. They wept when the she-camel was slaughtered, prayed when others laughed, and remained loyal to their prophet even as others conspired against him. Now they stood amidst the shadows of a once great nation, witnesses to the consequences of arrogance and defiance in the face of mercy and truth. A people given every opportunity to repent, yet who chose denial instead. Salih returned to the ruins of his homeland, and what he saw broke his heart. The familiar faces were gone. The homes that once echoed with his name were silent. The people who could have embraced faith had chosen destruction instead. Standing among the remnants of a fallen civilization, he spoke, not in triumph, but in profound sorrow. "O my people," he said, "I conveyed to you the message of my Lord. I offered you sincere counsel, but you did not love those who give sincere advice." It was the cry of a prophet burdened by the weight of his nation, only to witness its tragic end. He did not rejoice in their destruction, rather he mourned their loss deeply, for he had loved them and fervently desired their salvation. Yet guidance cannot be imposed upon hearts hardened by arrogance. The story of Thamud did not conclude with monuments, triumphs, or enduring kingdoms. Instead, it ended with silence, dust, and a solemn reminder that signs are sent not for mere spectacle, but for sincere reflection, that miracles are not trivial displays but profound tests, and that truth can never be contorted to satisfy the will of the proud. Allah, in His infinite mercy, is also perfectly just. Their legacy does not live on through descendants or traditions, but through the verses of the Quran, preserved as an eternal warning to every generation that follows. A warning that wealth, power, and pride are meaningless in the presence of divine truth, that those who reject Allah's mercy will inevitably stand face to face with His judgment. The ruins of Thamud remain scattered across the lands they once ruled, a stark testament. Their true legacy is not found in gold or stone, but in the lessons they left behind. When the truth is revealed, accept it before it is too late. For once the final sign is given and the last warning is ignored, no fortress on earth can shield one from the decree of the Almighty.